Yep. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the April 16th meeting of the Village of New Paltz Planning Board. Tonight, we have some administrative business to take care of. Then we will be having public comment, and we have 3 public hearings scheduled for tonight. So I'd like to start by asking the board if they got a chance to review the minutes from April 2nd. Are there any changes or?
I wasn't here, so I'm out of that one.
Okay. Nothing. In that case, I'd like to get a motion to approve the meeting, the April 2nd meeting minutes.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next up, I was wondering if we had any updates from our village board and Ulster County Planning Board liaison. Bill Murray, are you here tonight? Oh, yes, there you are.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Thank you for giving up the Tuesday evening to look at village business at hand. Seats very low. Nothing really to report, other than last week, the village board sent a letter to Lance McMillan of the New York State Department of Transportation, asking them for very specific improvements to our roadways, pedestrian crossings and the like, given the recent events that we've experienced here, including a fatality. Sorry. Any event, nothing from the continue to discuss consolidation. Progress on this. Consider it. Properties that are large apartment complex opportunities and both apartments and some of the ones that have already been approved. Yeah. And then I recently heard this week that Governor Hochul's budget and proposal and legislation includes language that paves the way for more accessory dwelling, more municipalities to emphasize and promote accessory dwellings to help relieve the housing shortage in all municipalities, including ours. And I'm interested in whether the village board is in a dialogue about our zoning and law around accessory dwellings, given that what we seem to experience as planning board members is opposition to it from lots of the public, whereas what we know to be true is the law, that the code allows for it pretty liberally. interested in, and then of course there's this backdrop of hundreds of units being built for some period of time like this. So that's a conversation to the village board, or maybe we might write a memo to prompt that conversation to the village board to reflect on where we see ourselves in light of the state is encouraging it and our community seems to discourage it, and yet our code encourages it. Right.
Wow, grant, like, go to the website, oh, they're not doing that this time. And this is a grant that's due, I believe, that you have to apply by, the date is May sometime when it expires. But if they are supposed to be getting people money to help them, grants.
Right, there's been a refreshing of the grant money to the counties. Yeah. And they still it's clear to us currently, and what I'm citing is the difference between about when these proposals meet when applications meet our table and what we're guided by in the code. So I'm really sure we do what the code says. It's town defaults planning board. Yeah. Were there any updates from the town of New Paltz planning board?
Hi, so I'm right here, Amy. And first of all, since I'm speaking right now, I just want to let you guys know I cannot barely hear anything anyone is saying. I hear a tiny little bit about what Rich says every once in a while. I couldn't hear one thing Rachel said, and I heard nothing Bill said on the video. I don't know why.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
I'm trying to follow, but I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, as far as the town updates go, we have none this week as the town planning board meeting, the last one was canceled. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to just briefly review the memo that,
I went to both my meetings this week, by the way.
oh, I'm sorry, did I
Okay.
skip the Environmental Policy Board? Were there any updates from the Environmental Policy Board?
Well, we're looking forward to Earth Day. Apparently someone's looking after the edible garden, and we discussed searching for an alternative to asphalt. I don't know how most people feel about using asphalt as a means of creating and repairing sidewalks, but I just can't believe that that is the best solution. And I've started doing some research, and I'm collecting links to various different products that could possibly be used. And that's what I was tasked to do when I made my objection, because we had some discussion over how environmentally detrimental asphalt is. But aesthetically, I for both reasons, I think that we really should seek some sort of alternative to repairing and creating sidewalks in the village, to an alternative to asphalt. I just and then the SUNY Environmental Task Force, they're going to have an Earth Day as well. Both the town is having an Earth Day and the SUNY campus is having an Earth Day, and they're not on the same day this year, which is great. The campus one is going to be on the following Saturday, and the town one, I think everybody knows about.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Next, I'd like to move on to the memo that our attorney prepared that kind of synthesized all our comments on the New Paltz Apartments project. Did everyone get a chance to read that?
I think, when did this come in? I think I might have
It's
looked.
on the back of Emily's memo. So I just want to make sure that this captured all of our comments that we want to officially pass along to the developer. Personally, I thought it captured everything. But is there
I
anything?
felt the same way. And in the interest of full disclosure, the developer has reached out to the Affordable Housing Board. They would like to meet with us to talk about their plans for affordable housing. Since I wear two hats here, I want to disclose that to you. And we're going to accommodate them as quickly as we can, hopefully by the end of April, if we can do it.
Great.
Okay, there are a lot more, I mean, there's a lot more detail than what's included in this list, I think. And I suppose we'll have a chance to see their response and whether or not they've addressed all the details that were.
Yeah, and I mean,
Um,
if there are specific passages from the DEIS you object to or like to see changed, then you could certainly like highlight those and send
Okay,
those to us.
send them to the whole planning board? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure, I'm doing it in iPad notes. I
Great.
don't know, like I couldn't figure out any other way of editing the PDF, so it's. And then there were others of us are doing something similar, so that's what I was wondering about, how they were going to like collate all of the different edits. But I can say a big deal here is that I think the project is too large,
Yeah. I
and
think
that it should
that's
at least be cut in half.
captured.
That's not, I don't feel like that's been captured on here. Gigantic.
We add something?
So
Yeah, I'd like the arm
There's-
off the top. It's like a square. It looks like a big dipper. I've said this from day one. The dipper part has to come in. That's the part that troubles me the most. It goes up towards the wetlands. And it's the most, I think, obtrusive part of
yeah,
the.
and I do think that having that additional wetland buffer would impact that, but
Yeah.
we could add a specific,
It turns it not into a cluster. They say they're doing a cluster. A cluster is a cluster. It's not a dipper.
So yeah, I think we could express some concern about the overall size and just requesting that they scale it back a little.
And there were numerous environmental, when you're dealing with a project this size for them, not to include any solar at all, and it's sad.
So I just want to clarify that the applicant is in the process of, they've taken all the comments that came in from the
Mhm.
public, from written, oral, everything, and they are categorizing them and responding to them. So it's
Okay.
not only these, they're doing all the comments.
Okay,
But this is anything the planning board wanted to add or emphasize. So we do need to get this to them soon. I sent this as a draft last week, but I
Yeah.
wanted to bring it to you to verify.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'd like to just get a vote on whether we should send this to them with the addition of that one additional point that Rachel brought up. So everyone's comfortable with that. I'd like a motion to send this draft or send the updated draft to the applicant.
Before I vote, I'd just like to say that in the spirit of the fact that all of the information that was discussed by all community members and us is what they're expected to respond to. And like you said, I have like I noted up the binder but everything got into the dialogue. So I don't think of this note as the exclusive set of considerations we want them to consider, but I'm
Right.
comfortable with it being kind of like the more things that the planning board added and wanted to discuss that overlaps and might have its own purpose. And I would welcome Rachel's addition.
Yeah, that's
I can put a note on here saying that this is, in addition to.
I had a court reporter here, but better gotten all the rest of it, you know.
Right, exactly.
Kitty Brown brought up a lot of good points in her letter as well.
Okay, in that case, could I have a motion to send this?
So move.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, I'd like to move on to our public comment section. If there's anyone here that would like to make a general comment or comment about a project that isn't 5 Prospect Street, 7 Prospect Street, or 85 North Chestnut Street, please raise your hand. Okay. No public comment. Is there anyone online raising their hands? Okay, no. In that case, let's move on to our first public hearing. Like to get a motion to open the public hearing for PB 2308, 5 Prospect Street.
So move.
Second.
second.
Kenny. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so these are all. Okay. Sarah Solomon, would you step up first? Well, you were one of the few that noted 5 Prospect Street, so this is our first public hearing is for 5 Prospect Street, but if you'd like to make comments on both, then you can do.
It's the same for both.
Okay. Yes, please.
Yes, I'm Sarah Solomon. I live at 14 Prospect Street. And I acknowledge that the builder has tried to make, or has presented changes and adjusted the outside and how things are supposed to look. But I want to restate about the buildings currently there, and I guess that's what's going to be created, more of those. That there's just so much, they're so unkempt. There really is so much garbage. There was one day there was garbage all over the lawn, and my daughter, who's younger, decided to just pile it up in the walkway of the home and of the building, and it really was there for a week, just kicked through by the residents. So I just, again, I'm very saddened by the prospect on Prospect Street of having that type of building added to, and then maybe build a new one built on. So that's my,
So it's the maintenance you're
I
mostly
would say it's
concerned
the
about?
maintenance. It's
Yeah.
maintenance.
Yeah,
Have you contacted the building department?
Well, oh, I didn't know there was
Oh,
to report.
yes, yeah.
Okay, well, that, I will. And it's, I will.
Okay.
But that's what I notice most, and, it's ever present. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Aja Whitney. Asia.
8 Prospect Street, so this is my neighbors, like on my side across next to, so she's talking about garbage. I'm the one cleaning up the garbage that ends up on my lawn in my backyard. That's the least of my concern. My concern is the safety and the disruption of the neighborhood that is. And that has been for the last 10 years, except for the last couple of years when they started buying up all the property and turning it into a like tenement yard. We know that there's way more people living in these buildings than they're supposed to. I know that they put that in, but it's not what it is. We've talked to them many a times. They tell us something and then they do the other. Talking to a building department, if there's no building department that you could talk to about the garbage, again, that's the least of the concern. There isn't. You're gonna go to the landlord, he's gonna say, yeah, we'll take care of it. They don't take care of it. It's young kids and it's solos living for a small amount of time, short term. They're in and out, they're not part of the community, so they don't care. We're part of the community, we care, we live there, we wanna raise our family there. But I don't feel comfortable living across from 30 people living in 3 different buildings. That's not comfortable. I'm sure it wouldn't be comfortable for you. So we're going to continue to fight this. And I hope that you guys are looking at every single line and understanding that this is where we're coming from. It's really upsetting for all of us that we continue to live in a beautiful neighborhood that's being disrupted constantly. Sorry, I'm a little this is emotional because this is where I live. This is my home.
Sounds like my neighborhood.
It does?
Yeah.
Isn't that upsetting? That people are coming in, are they coming in and just tearing down beautiful homes?
No,
and
they're
creating
not, but they are
buildings
making a
that
lot
have
of
30 less
garbage.
people? Yeah, the garbage is one thing, but when they have people that are not part of the community coming in and disrupting the community, that's upsetting. I'm sure you wouldn't want to raise your children there or continue to live there if you felt unsafe or you felt like I'm not going to feel comfortable here with this many people.
We're
Yeah,
not
this is,
having a
we can't do this,
dialogue.
but
We're
I can
just-
talk to you some other time, but
I'd love
the
to.
answer is I did that. I did raise my kids on a street.
Well, that's good. That's good that you did, but we're in a,
I understand. I
Yeah.
totally understand. I don't know what the answer is.
I think we've been trying to contact you with a lot of the answers.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Is there anyone else here tonight that would like to make a comment on 5 Prospect Street specifically?
I
Okay,
think, sorry, in general, I think a lot of us were.
could
specifically
you
wanting to
come
comment-
up to the
Sure.
table and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Noelle McEntee. Is it easier if I sit?
Whatever you prefer.
My name is Noelle McEntee. I am a former planning board member years ago. I also grew up in New Paltz on Plains Road. Have a lot of love for this community. In 2017, my husband and I bought our home at 29 Prospect Street, which had previously been student housing by an absentee landlord. And we have gone through the very laborious and hard process of turning a family home back into a family home. And having then on the other side of this table, I have seen several proposals come through in the past. And the thing I always go back to is that you can't necessarily control the people, but so what you all are dealing with is, it's not these current homeowners or these current property managers. It's how do we build a structure and a system in a community that is supporting the values that we believe in as a community, such as making more family homes available to people, making sure that there is better understanding of what is expected of you in terms of your property and to take care of your property and to ensure that there isn't garbage sitting out and chairs and such. I mean, when you compare New Paltz to any of these other beautiful towns in the area, the thing that sets us apart so much is that we constantly have, like, you can see the beauty of the charm of these old buildings, but they have been run down and they're not taken care of and given the love, like the Rhinebecks or the Hudsons or the Kingstons in certain capacities, not all, but to me, the biggest fear here is that I want everyone to be successful and I want these people that are part of my community and own property and my neighbors to have beautiful places to live. My fear is by not fully acknowledging what it means to build homes for and housing for multiple people, or to truly look at, okay, if this is going to be mostly like single person housing versus family home housing, we're losing that. And I have major concerns, especially after all of the commentary that this community, my neighborhood has given to these folks, how they didn't immediately go out and make sure that things were taken care of and addressed, and that things that were falling apart weren't immediately addressed. And so the concern here is not that we don't want people to grow in their businesses, to build and be better, but it's truly respecting the values of like the historical buildings and the history here, and also the fabric of this community. So to me, I want there to be a really deep and better understanding of how we do this without maximizing profit, but putting community and people at the same level. So that's my feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to make a comment on 5 Prospects? No, in that case, I'd like to have a motion to close the public hearing for PB 2308 5 Prospect Street.
So,
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
aye.
Aye. Moving on, I'd like to get a motion to open the public hearing for PB 2309 7 Prospect Street.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So could we have Allison Nash?
Hello.
Hi.
I think that my neighbors were also referring to 7 Prospect. It was a little confusing because the sign-in sheet for 7 was not there towards the end. So they were
Yeah.
also speaking about 7.
Yes, we understand. Yeah.
So I have quite a bit to say, and some of my neighbors have given me some of their time, so I hope you bear with me. I have lived in my home next door to 7 Prospect for 34 years. This is where I raised my son. This is where I host holiday meals and hand out Halloween treats to countless neighborhood children. I very much care about my home and my neighborhood. My neighbors and I have spoken about its importance, knowing our neighbors and their children, appreciating the beauty of the neighborhood with its historic homes and lovely gardens, highlighting our participation in village organizations. We expressed our concern about demolishing historic buildings and creating an out-of-character huge structure that the Historical Preservation Commission termed a Frankenhouse. We care about our neighbors and our neighborhood and have planted roots here. First, I want to highlight that I've voiced my concerns about the plans for 7 Prospect over and over again, but will be reiterating points I have made previously because they were ignored. Case in point, in response to my deep concerns about the long row of trees on the site plan that are along the border of my property, I delineated the reasons why this plan is unacceptable. These include the row of trees. Can I just give you these so you can see what I'm talking about?
Thank you. I have
So I'm talking about these row of trees, of which I've crossed out some of them.
Oh.
Okay, so the row of trees will block, they're right next to my house. They'll block the light and sight lines from most of the windows of my house. They will cast shade on my flower garden, which is the only sunny part of my property. As the trees mature, the roots can spread to under my driveway, causing problems. They do not block the view of the parking lot, and all they do is bring expense to the owners. As this long line of trees provides no benefits and only cause harm, I had asked that instead trees be planted on the north and east boundary of the parking lot. So I kind of drew them in. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah, I see.
Yeah. This would then obscure the view of the parked cars from my house and from the street and sidewalk. Despite my strong concerns, the planning board provided no rationale for why the original plan was not modified. A related concern is the care of the trees. Once the trees are planted, they require much care. I am concerned because such care is contrary to how the property is maintained, as you have heard from my neighbors. You have seen photos of the trash strewn about the property and the overflowing trash cans. There is also a history of neglect of the overgrown grass on the north side of the property next to my house. Not mowing leads to that piece of the property looking like a vacant lot, which encourages people to toss yet more trash. Given this, I would like assurance that the trees and property will be properly maintained. Also ignored was my concern about how the proposed development would affect drainage. The steep 2-foot drop on the north side leads to water being pooled at the south boundary of my property, in turn leading to basement flooding. We have asked that an assessment be conducted of how the proposed construction at 7 will affect this water flow, and this too has not been addressed. I now move on to my broader concern, preserving the character of the neighborhood. Unlike the 1- and 2-family houses on Prospect, 7 has been rentals by the room since it was purchased by Mr. Serta. Tenants have come and gone, staying at most for 1 year. Unlike most of the residents on Prospect, they are not people making their New Paltz their home. Mr. Serta also owns 6 Prospect, which is next door to Asia's house, which once purchased was also converted from a 2-family house to rentals by the room. Are such rentals by the room permitted by code in a 2-family residential district? I'm going to again turn to the code. A goal of the code is that of preserving the quality of existing stable residential neighborhoods, and that's a quote from the code. 2 regulations address such preservation for the R2 district: the code definition of family and the regulation stating that rooming houses are not allowed in the R2 district. I'll first turn to the code definition of rooming house. A dwelling occupied by a resident owner or agent thereof and his family, and for whom 4 or more tenants rent sleeping space without provision of meals. While the current rental by the rooms at 6 and 7 Prospect do not strictly conform to the code definition of rooming house, they have essentially the same effect in not conforming with the character of a stable 1- and 2-family district. Furthermore, note that rooming houses require a resident owner or agent in the home, which provide more oversight of the property than the current rentals by the room. If rentals by the room with oversight are not permitted, certainly those without such oversight should not be permitted. This brings me to the code definition of family used to regulate 1 and 2 family districts. So I'm not going to read the whole definition, you all know it. But relevant to my argument, the code notes that up to 3 unrelated people can be considered family. And also that in the event of any conflict between the definition and the definition of family as may from time to time be established by New York State statutory or case law, New York State law shall prevail. I read Mayor Rogers' position statement about the definition of family, in which he argues that the village should not be involved in tracking who is related to whom. I fully agree that village officials should not be involved in defining who is and who is not a family. I have no problem with unrelated people living in my neighborhood. I only brought up the code definition at previous meetings because I thought the planning board was required to ensure that site plans conform to the village code. Mayor Rogers referred to in his position statement to the legal memorandum LU05 definition of family in zoning law and building codes, which I know you're all familiar with. It was interesting for me to see that Mayor Rogers supported his proposal with the same memorandum that I used in previous public comments to show that virtual rooming houses in 1 and 2 family districts are not compliant with New York State zoning code law. The memorandum begins by stating, any successful zoning scheme which purports to create and attain a single family or 2 family zoning district must contain a definition of family. It then addresses the challenge of creating a definition that preserves such family districts, but at the same time is not so restrictive as to leave out non-traditional families. The memorandum goes on to use case law to create definitions that preserve stable family neighborhoods, but is inclusive of a variety of family types. Mayor Rogers focused on the aspects of the memorandum that critiqued using narrow definitions of family, given the many varieties of non-traditional families that should not be excluded. But what he omitted was the review of cases for which definitions of family were approved by the court. The memorandum indicates that 2 different approaches for defining family districts have been taken. In one approach, municipal codes attempt to define family in a broad sense by defining the functional equivalent of family. Factors indicating such functional equivalence that were specified by the court include a single housekeeping unit to all outward appearances, a relatively stable and permanent family unit, not a temporary living arrangement, as would be a group of college students, and did not provide a framework for transients or transient living.
Excuse me, Mrs. Nash, we've heard
Okay.
lots of comments about the definition of family already. I was wondering if you had any new public comments that you'd like to make about this project?
I just wanted to say that I made many comments, but nobody ever addressed it. So then I read Mayor Rogers.
Right,
And that was
yes.
new to me because nobody from the board had told me about it. And so he went to define it by just maximum occupancy. But I want to
Yeah.
argue that the New York State memorandum does allow for definitions of a functional.
We discussed this with our attorney, and that's not the correct legal interpretation.
The one that from the New York State memorandum?
No, I think you're misreading that.
Can you tell me why? Because
I'm sorry, we can't do that here at this public hearing, but it's been discussed extensively, and we can send you a more thorough explanation over email or, in a letter, however you.
Sorry.
Would you like me to briefly
Okay.
address it, or?
Okay, sure. Yeah, if we could briefly address it, because I'm sure other people are
I think so.
concerned.
The definition of family in the zoning code is something that the village board has to set. And so what they've done is they've provided a position statement defining how they would like the definition as it's written to be understood and applied. If there were to be any change to the definition, it would have to be through the village board, not this board. This board simply applies the zoning code.
So the-
What the memorandum describes is different approaches that are acceptable for municipalities to take. But that is something that the village board would have to decide if they wanted to make any change to the definition for this village.
So Mayor, so the position statement is, as is the law at this point, even though it's just a position
The
statement?
law is what is in the code, and the position statement is the village board's approach to how it will be interpreting the code and enforcing it. The planning board's job is simply to apply the code to
Thank you.
projects that come.
Okay,
before.
I'll just read my last sentence. I hope you will listen to the chorus of people who make Prospect Street their home, plant gardens, participate in civic life, know and care about their neighbors, and who appreciate the historic nature of our community. You have the power to honor our shared vision rather than the vision of one person who wants to develop a property for maximum profit and not as a place to call home.
Thank you. And who else on here were you speaking for?
For Riley and Besa. I don't think they signed up, or maybe they did.
Yeah. Okay. Next, you have Christine Marmo.
Christine Marvel, 127 Huguenot Street. I just want to say this project, as Ms. Lagaca said about the project on 32, just too big, too many people, too many cars. And our neighborhood is just going to be forever changed. And the trash is out of control. And that is something I know it's not the most difficult thing to deal with, but one would think that with all of the discussion about the trash, the properties that the applicants have would be spotless. And they are not. Thank you.
Thank you. David Bunke. David, are you here? No, okay, moving on. Terry Dungan. Well,
I just wanted to start, I'm a Prospect Street resident. I just wanted to start by reiterating for the record my concern that this is being the public hearing on this application. In accordance with the law, this application is substantially incomplete to the extent that it is not considered legally to have been submitted. And so it should not even be at the public hearing. Section 212.23(a)(1) of the Village Code has a long list of 16 items that a site plan must contain. And it says specifically that if all the required information is not in the site plan is not deemed to have been submitted. So anyway, as far as what the law requires, I would say that it would appear that the hearing that's taking place is out of order. However, we're here. 5 Prospect Street is a very good contrast with 7 Prospect Street because it's the same applicant. They're right next door to each other. 5 Prospect Street is completely legal. The application is complete. And the information, particularly the site plan and the floor plans and so on, they're absolutely compliant with the law. It is obvious when you look at the site plan, at the floor plan especially, that you are looking at family residences. If you look at the site plan, you have 2 apartments with 3 bedrooms each. The site plan has 4 parking spaces. There are going to be 2 parking spaces per unit, even though the units have 3 bedrooms. 7 Prospect Street is very different. 7 Prospect Street is planned for 9 bedrooms, and it has 9 parking spaces. As 5 Prospect Street demonstrates, with the family, you do not need 1 parking space per bedroom. The house next door to me is a young family, 2 parents and their child, 3-bedroom house, 3 occupants, 1 car. You don't need 1 parking space for every bedroom with a family residence. 7 Prospect Street with 9 bedrooms, the site plan indicates 9 parking places. Okay, that is not planned as a family residence. Right now, as we speak, 7 Prospect Street is occupied as a rooming house, which is an illegal use in the R2 zone. And as a rooming house, you have, there are 6 bedrooms being rented out, 6 tenants, they're all young adults, they all have a car, which is why you would need 1 space per bedroom. A rooming house needs 1 parking space per bedroom. Family residence does not. So the site plan that has been submitted is a clear indication to you that their intention for the property is not a family residence. Their intention for the property is to continue the use as a rooming house, which is in violation of section 212-54 of the Village Code. Section 212-54 specifically stipulates that an illegal use may not be expanded or enlarged. So because you right now have an illegal use on the property, and because the site plan clearly shows that the intention is to continue the illegal use, this site plan is illegal just on that basis. This application is illegal because it is for the enlargement of an unlawful use. And also, the application is not accurate. You'll notice on the application, if you look at the first page, it says that it is 2 residences, that the existing building, the existing residence has 6 bedrooms, and it's going to be reduced to 5. That statement is incorrect. The building at 7 Prospect Street was and still is legally a mixed-use building. It is a single-family residence with a professional office attached towards the chiropractor's office. In the residence, so it says 6 bedrooms. In the residence, there are 2 bedrooms. In the chiropractor's office, there are 3 treatment rooms, which, according to the state code, could be used as bedrooms. So instead of 6 bedrooms, there are actually 5 rooms that can be legally used as bedrooms. The 6th bedroom is a former treatment room, which under state code is too small to be used as a habitable space. And the state code, the Uniform Building Code, Part 1226, Section 404.4 specifically says that a non-habitable space may not be used for sleeping purposes. So right now, the building is illegally used for a rooming house, and one of the bedrooms in the building, in violation of state code, is being used as a bedroom, even though the code says it is not habitable and it may not be used for sleeping. Okay, so what they're applying for. One of the primary reasons that this is an incomplete and illegal application is that there are no floor plans. Floor plans are specifically required by the code. Floor plans have to be not only present, but they must be drawn to scale. And they must be drawn to a scale which is large enough to show all the salient details. You don't have that. The first page of the site plan that was submitted to you does contain a small sketch of a floor plan in the upper left-hand corner. But that sketch is not a formal floor plan. It states right on it that it is not drawn to scale, and it is clearly too small to show any detail. When I checked with your clerk to see if new floor plans had been submitted, she pulled up the small sketch in the corner and she had to enlarge it to read it and make sure what it was. So that sketch does not qualify as a site plan. Without a site plan, this is a substantially incomplete application, and by law, it cannot be considered as having been submitted. However, you deserve to know what's going to happen in the building. So I have made floor plan. In a former life, I was an architectural draftsman. So this is what is intended for 7 Prospect Street. Like 5 Prospect Street, you have the kitchen, dining room, and the living room. This is the original house. This is a 1-bedroom apartment that was added in the 60s. And then up here, then it was converted to the chiropractor's office, and there were more treatment rooms up here. The room which is being illegally used as a bedroom is currently over here. This is what they intend to add to the building. So they intend to remove the 2 treatment rooms over here and build this house attached to it. So what you have in the original house, you would have the kitchen, the dining room, and the living room of the 1-bedroom apartment being used as the living room for the residents. Up here in the new house, you have the kitchen, dining room, and the living room. Okay, that takes care of those 6 rooms. Then from the bedrooms, over here on the 2nd floor, there are 3 bedrooms, and on the 1st floor, 2 more bedrooms, and in the former apartment, there's another bedroom. So the existing building, the part that they're going to keep and use, would have 6 bedrooms. In the new house, there are 2 bedrooms here, and then upstairs, there are 4 bedrooms. There's a total of 12 bedrooms. In accordance with the law, you can only have 9 bedrooms on that property. And if you check the application that's been given to you, it states that they're going to have 9 bedrooms. But in fact, the plan is set up and configured for 12 bedrooms, 3 more than the law allows, 3 more than the application states. And this is in keeping with the applicant's other properties at 32 Prospect Street and at 6 Prospect Street. 6 Prospect Street is particularly egregious, but it's a good example of this. 6 Prospect Street, when the applicants bought it, it had 5 bedrooms.
Excuse me, sorry to interrupt, but is 6 Prospect Street a part of the application and consideration
It is
now? And
not,
is there,
but it is relevant.
I'm not sure it is for our purposes, and you've taken
As a
quite a deal, quite a
as
good
a
deal of time
demonstration.
already to share something that may or may not be relevant also. And I think we
The
have a
point
lot
is,
of material to cover in our
Unfortunately,
meeting.
we have a lot
And
more people. Yeah.
I appreciate the work you've done to create that, but I'm not sure the relevance of that, because I do appreciate some of the comments you've made about the need for a scale floor plan. But presenting a floor plan that you designed and brought is not an alternative to the scale floor plan that we might have to suggest or
This is
request
not an
from the
official
applicant.
plan. This is part of my testimony.
So I'm asking, and the chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just feel really strongly about the way that this board is both opening up a public hearing, but also is the time that this board spends here is respected by the length of time that are being presented and the relevance of the comments that are being presented by several of the community members. And so I'm interrupting with intent, and I'm asking if we could move it forward without reference to many other projects that don't have anything to do with this application, and with the relevant information that we need to help make a determination about this application.
6 Prospect Street is relevant because it is another Prospect Street directly across the street from this property, and it is owned by the application, and it demonstrates their rental practices. And it is an example in the same way that 7 Prospect Street is currently being rented as an illegal rooming house. 6 Prospect Street is being rented the same way. And the concern is, when they bought 6 Prospect, it had 5 bedrooms. If you go online and check, it is listed as having 12 tenants. So can you tell me how you get 12? You can't. And
It's not my
also,
responsibility to tell.
also that's the
But what
problem.
it is my responsibility is to make sure that these public hearings are of a appropriate amount of time and shared appropriate and relevant detail, such that we can continue
The
with the
applicant's
process we have.
rental practices in their other buildings is absolutely a relevant detail when you're discussing the future of this building.
And that is probably, that's something that we're glad you brought to our attention.
Yes, that is noted. Were there any other
There,
comments
um,
separate to the rental practices or the floor plans or your hypothetical floor plans that the board should consider?
we have 3 alternative plans to be considered. These are legal. They are 2 dwelling units and 9 bedrooms. Maybe we could hand them out.
Is there an architect's seal on that?
No, I am an architectural draftsman, and these are,
Thank
they're
you.
not, no.
Okay, thank you. We'll
Thank you very much.
we'll hand those out. Yeah.
We'll give them to his architect to look at.
They're an example of what could lawfully be done on that property.
Thank you.
And this, I have been in this house. I'm familiar with the building. So if you take the small sketch, which is on the corner of their site plan.
Yes,
And you put it with this is, if you look at the site plan and what it shows in terms of the shape of the house and what it says, this is a rendering that is compatible with that.
we understand. Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Next, could we have June Wheeler, please?
Thank you.
And I'd like just to ask that we keep our comments to less than 6 minutes.
Oh,
please.
yes. Brevity. So, you know what? So I've spoken to you before, spoken about how wonderful the neighborhood is, our neighbors. Among, you know, our children have grown up together, we look after each other's pets. We help each other out with snow plowing, holiday decorations. You know, now there's a new generation of children growing up there who are still, whether they realize it or not, following the tradition of hand-delivering handwritten invitations to our doors. It's just a really sweet place to live. I always included amongst my friendly neighborhood feelings, the Sertas at the corner. I know you know, they've done wonderful work on our vehicles. I fill up with gas there several times a week because I have a very long drive to work. There they are. Wonderful. I'm just concerned that the neighborliness does not seem to be reciprocated. The fact that we brought up issues in the last couple of meetings that were unaddressed, you know, you've heard about the garbage, but the trees especially that Allison mentioned would affect us. I'm on the other side of Allison. And, you know, if trees are all the way to the street, that will block our view as well. We can see all the way to Main Street. I only have to step out a few steps to be able to see whether there's a parade going down Main Street, and that would block that. So her design is much preferable, and I wish it had been taken up last time when we first brought it up. The other big impact that this will have is when they tear down that beautiful barn, which frankly, if the barn was still going to be there, I would have not much problem with this whole thing because I love it that much. All right, but that's in their plans. And our driveway, I did find some more pictures of the deep lake that forms now in our driveway, and that's not their fault. Allison told me that it has only been happening since that driveway was paved. It used to be, you know, like just a gravel drive. And it was the previous neighbors who asked Allison's permission, you know, like, would it be okay if we paved this? And not knowing any better, both of them agreed. And since then, because it's downhill, her basement has flooded into our driveway. You can't really see on this, but I can send them to you if you like. And the percentages, Terry is actually the one that discerned this. The lot coverage limit is 30% in our zone, the R2 zone. Their lot coverage area in their plan is 35.5% apparently. And they're trying to mitigate that by using a permeable paver system. But I would beg of you to please have an engineer study that water runoff, because permeable pavers get clogged, you know, they don't work perfectly. They're not fully permeable ever. And so that would be one request, to have an engineer study the water runoff. I'd also wonder if we could see samples of the materials to be used on the exterior of these buildings. And I also wonder if the Historic Preservation Commission has seen those or could be allowed to see those, because I didn't feel that any of their comments had been taken into consideration, and they were extremely thoughtful comments, you know, from the initial site reviews. Let's see, that's mainly what I wanted to say, except I do have a sidebar to your point about the asphalt sidewalks. This, to me, should be a historic street, considering how many 100-year-old houses there are there, and the several stretches of very good bluestone sidewalks that we still have there. And a lovely stretch of concrete sidewalk across from the bluestone on the east side of the street. Asphalt running all down I mean, that would just, I've been walking around the village since hearing of these plans. And every place that I see asphalt, it just looks like it's a construction site. It's unsightly, not historic, and not desirable. So that's my little sidebar. Thank you so much for listening to all these comments. It means so much to us.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you for your brevity.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here tonight that would like to make a comment on 7 Prospect Street? Madeline O'Sullivan, would you like to?
My neighbors and myself and my husband and my family, you've already heard, we're super tight knit. We're almost like a compound, sort of like somebody needs something, we could go to each other's places. I have 2 children, 12 and 14. They know every single person on my block that is family owned. Okay. I also appreciate the fact that these owners, like, they've seen my children grow up. They wave to them. I know that their store is safe. My children could go down there, they could get something to drink or whatever it is. So I appreciate that. But as it is, they already own 3 properties. One of which is a boarding house, which is across the street, and they own an apartment complex. There's too much student housing. New Paltz has no shortage of student housing, and Prospect Street already has way too much of that. It's starting to turn into Church Street. We allowed so many student housing to go illegally and legally and all this other stuff, you know, on Church Street. You can't even walk down there nicely. The sidewalks are terrible. There's parking is a mess. You can't even get to the temple. You got to park down there. It's a lot. New Paltz, SUNY New Paltz has plenty of student housing. We need housing for families, single mothers, single fathers, a professional. Like, we don't need more housing. The other thing is that at the corner of our street, we have the Trailways bus. So now we have people parking outside because they're waiting for their family members or friends to get off, and they're picking up and they're dropping off, and that's all lovely, but there's no room. There's no more room. And I can't say, we've owned our house on Prospect Street, 31 Prospect Street, for 25 years. Everybody that owns the houses or on those streets, they're constantly fixing their houses up. We're trying to make it pretty. We're trying to make it more family oriented, not students. I don't see a need for it. Also, bringing up the sidewalks, I just need the sidewalks to be done. I could care less if they're slate. People have been falling. I've known many people that have fallen. My children have fallen. My neighbors' children have fallen. We just have to get that done. Plus the fact that it goes like down like this. So forget about it if it snows. You can't even walk, just make it safe. You know, we all pay our taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here that would like to make a comment on 7 Prospect Street? Okay, is there anyone online? No. In that case, I'd like to get a motion to close the public hearing for PB 2309 7 Prospect Street.
So move.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on, we have one more public hearing for tonight. I'd like to get a motion to open the public hearing for PB 2406 85 North Chestnut Street.
So move.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is anyone here tonight to make a public comment on 85 North Chestnut Street? Oh, anyone online like to make a comment on 85 North Chestnut? In that case, I'd like to get a motion to close the public hearing for PB 2406 85 North Chestnut Street.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so for our first application review, we have PB 2308 5 Prospect Street. Good evening. Good, how are you?
Good.
Okay. So I don't think there were any outstanding issues with this application. Was there anything changed on the site plan since our last meeting?
No.
For 5 Prospect? Okay. Yeah. I believe then, were there any questions from the board about this one?
5 wasn't the one with the issues.
No. Seems like far fewer people are concerned about that.
I do want to clarify that one of the comments in the public hearing said that there are 4 parking spaces of 5 in that 5 Prospect, which would not be according to code, as I understand it. There are actually six parking spots for 5 Prospect, which is according to code. Correct. And those exist because they are indoor. Yes. Parking provided by the garage to the north side. So the code, to comment on one of the things emphasized in the public comment, the code actually does encourage and require the number of parking spaces to be aligned with the number of bedrooms, not to be less than the number of bedrooms. I don't remember the exact way it calculates, but I'm just pointing out that this property has 6 approved parking spaces, 2 of them interior.
Right. Okay. So in that case, I'd like to consider authorizing a resolution of approval. So could I have a motion to authorize our attorney to draft that resolution of approval?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so,
Well, excuse me, Zach,
Yeah.
there was one thing that also came out of the comments, which is the material, the exterior materials for the home. You know, this board can't require or recommend unless it's historically required a particular building material, but I know there was a conversation, because I was present for the site visit, about what the exterior of the building would look like in terms of the material that would be used in the color. And so I understand that the choice from another conversation we had was that it's going to be vinyl and of a certain color. And maybe we should, maybe we could include in the resolution or maybe Ellen can just advise how we do this, that the consideration be that the material, the color is something that is considered by either the board or the historic planning commission or both.
so you're just talking about in the resolution requiring that
This is disclosure of the exact material and the approval of it.
And who would do the approving?
Well, I think Historic Pres made a comment about that in their material. I don't remember exactly how that conversation went. There was no requirement of it in their recommendation.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at the the memo from
Okay,
the Historic Preservation Committee
It's been a
and
minute since I read it.
yeah, I don't see any specific,
Because the building design is responsive to nearly everything else that was discussed in that
Which
meeting.
is the
and
main
in
thing
that
was the
memo.
design. They want to be able to.
So that was the only outstanding thing that I heard that I said to myself, maybe the building wasn't responsive to that. So I just wanted to raise it before. And if it's not, it doesn't have a place in the resolution, then, I mean, the applicant could, because I don't think the material and the color is a part of the site plan. No. So just my thought is, you know,
But if
if
there
there's
is
one
a
more
preferred-
thing that we didn't make sure that we addressed in some detail and specificity, it might be that, and I'm just raising it now. Especially given the suggestion that this board is not responsive to the comments being made.
Is it in the historic preservation comment? I remember the
can't
color
see that.
discussion on 7, but I just don't recall it.
So what color are you thinking?
Whatever you want. You put the color.
Can I ask you a question? Do you have someone who works at your shop that does cleanup?
Okay, let's clarify this garbage issue. It
Yes.
never was an issue till the construction of Prospect Street again with the sewage system. Right now, these trucks and the garbage trucks been a month since they went through that road to pick up garbage.
Can't you?
And I am myself picked up garbage this morning from 7 Prospect because there's garbage truck did not come in, wheeled it to the dumpster. So it's the issue is the construction and the sewage plan, they replacing the sewage lines. It's been for a month and a half now. And they're still talking another 2 weeks.
okay, excuse me.
I'm sorry.
That's very nice of you. Thank you.
You shouldn't, yeah. Just,
Okay.
Please.
I will pay more attention to it.
thank
on
you.
Daily basis. But as I say, the main issue was the garbage trucks not coming through Prospect. You guys even, it's been blocked.
Yeah, so then another topic I was gonna raise regarding the resolution is if it's been brought to our attention that maintenance of not other properties, but this property has been something that has been the neighbor's attention. Could there be a special condition in the, which maintenance is just a responsibility of the property owner.
We're not gonna ignore it, Rich, come on. This has been-
But
been,
what I'm asking, Emily, is it appropriate for us to include some attention toward maintenance of the property in special conditions, or is it just that it's assumed in the code and the law, so it doesn't have a place?
I mean, I think it's really just an enforcement issue,
Yeah.
just like any other property in the village, that if there is something that's not complying with the village code, then people need to call the village hall. I know that Alex is out, every day dealing with complaints. So that's the right course of action, is to make that complaint. Now, if there's something that you wanted to determine, like where the trash cans should be kept, or, something site plan related, I think we would look at that.
Thanks for the guidance.
Oh, yeah. Amy.
Yes, Amy.
That's what I was going to make a comment about. It seems like the garbage keeps coming up at these meetings. And I've noticed some of the landlords with larger units in the village, they have an area on their property where they have a trash area that's enclosed. So you can't necessarily see all the cans or the dumpster from the road. And I was wondering if perhaps this might be a friendly suggestion to the developer, that they might want to consider putting this on their site plan as an enclosed garbage area.
I mean, where were you planning on keeping the trash cans at?
They usually sit in the back of the house or inside the house on wheels, because the garbage company come once a week and they wheel them to the road and they pick them up on a Wednesday or a Tuesday night. But with the past 2 months with the road under construction, the garbage truck is not coming. They cannot pull in. There's bulldozers, there's trucks, there's everything on that road for the past 2 months. And that's where all this
What
issue
company
started.
is this that you?
I forgot the name of the
County
construction.
Waste that
The
everyone
county
uses?
waste, they come and pick up the garbage, but the construction company who's replacing the sewage line. they're replacing the sewage line for the past 2 months. They dug the road again.
Right. Yeah,
Well, I can tell you this, because just from what it's like in my neighborhood, you can't count on the students to wheel their garbage trucks and garbage cans in and out. They just won't do it. They'll leave them on the street. So it's really up to the property owner to wheel the garbage cans back and forth if they don't do it, or to somebody tell someone to do it. Like
I
it's
promise you.
your,
it will
your
be
free,
taken.
your property, your responsibility, and you know they're not gonna do it.
I will take care of it.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm still a little unclear on where we landed about specifying a color or a historic character.
I was bringing it up again as one item that I felt might be under addressed with regard to the historic planning comments. If it's not that it's been under addressed, then I'm totally good to not have it be any consideration in the resolution. But we should acknowledge that right now you could paint the building bright orange, and we didn't have a discussion about what color it was going to be. And so I don't want to leave the discussion open. So I'm asking, I don't want to be the person to decide it because I'm not a designer or an architect. But I'm asking, can we confirm that the color will get run by Historic Pres so that it makes sure that the one last detail that I think we want to confirm is one that doesn't go awry. And that could be done in a comment in the resolution, excuse me, in fact, that could be done.
Yeah, so maybe adding a specific condition that the Historic Preservation Committee will be consulted when determining the final color.
Oh, they could give us the color. To me, it doesn't matter. And as Richard, I'm not gonna put it orange. That's not gonna be the color I'm picking. So if they tell us what color they want it, I'm fine with it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a prominent building, you know.
Yeah, it's no problem. As I said, whatever color is fine with me.
Thanks.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that, Rich. Were there any other items that the board thinks should be added to the resolution of approval? Okay, if not, then I'd like to get a motion authorizing our attorney to draft that resolution of approval for next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you. So moving on, you can stay right where you are. Let's talk about PB 2309 7 Prospect Street. Okay, let me pull these up. So Emily, I was wondering if you could just
Please,
address
Emily.
some of Terry Dungan's concerns from his letter. There were some pretty specific code passages that were referenced, and I think he had some good points, but I also think there were some misunderstandings in there.
Yeah, I mean, as far as whether the application is complete, this application came in nearly a year ago, or maybe over a year ago, and was, we have letters in our file that the building inspector at the time reviewed it and determined it to be complete, and also determined it to be compliant with the zoning. So those are decisions that were made nearly a year ago. And you know, there is an appeal process if anyone disagrees with those decisions. But that's, you know, that's already done by the building department.
So do we, how could we get a definitive answer as to whether the claims are correct or not? Because if they were incorrect, then I would suppose an appeal would be something that ought to happen, but if they're not, then it shouldn't.
Well, appeals have to happen within a number of days.
Oh, so
Normally 60
you're
days.
saying that the window, the deadline has passed and
I
now,
do believe so, yeah. Now, if there's something that the planning board thinks they don't have and they want to have, we can certainly ask for it, but you know, the idea that the entire process is not valid, it does not conform to the material the board has before it. I mean, we did have those checks done by the building department and proceeded according to the code. Now, if there's something that you think you don't have, you can certainly ask for it.
Well, it's very, I'm concerned when someone tells me that there's that the building is illegal as it stands and that we are extending an illegal building. Either that's true or not.
So if, I think that the claim is that the way the building is being used is not legal. Now, if that's the case, then we have a complaint process for that, and people can make complaints to the building department if they believe something is not being legally used, and the building department can investigate, and that's a whole process that exists. So that's not the planning board's job to decide about, you know, whether the use as it currently stands is legal. The building department looked at these plans and said that the use as it's being proposed does comply with the zoning. So that's what we're proceeding with. Does
Thank
that
you.
answer that?
Yes, yeah.
So continuing with that question, in the building department's review, they reviewed this with the assumption that there were 6 legal bedrooms in the existing unit. Inherent in the fact that they accepted that as the premise of reducing it to 5. And we don't know whether the building department inspected the building and learned whether that 6th, room is habitable or not as a room. And while it's not we're not part, unless I'm a resident of the village, I could file a complaint about this, but we could ask for the building department's assistance in confirming the facts of the plan.
I would like to do that because if the mistake was made, we should know that there was a mistake.
Can I
made.
interfere a second?
Just 1 second. We will allow, absolutely. Sam. So I think where we stand as a planning board is we want the building inspector to confirm that we're working with information that's accurate according to the material we have. And we might also determine that some of the material we have isn't yet complete. We can ask for that too. So I just want to put that on the table to say that we might want to ask the building inspector to confirm that the house in its current configuration is what has been shared in the plan. And that it truly is currently a 6-bedroom being used legally, being reduced to a 5. I just want to confirm that that's the case because it's the basis of a part of our decision. And I'd like to allow Sam to respond to that.
I guess you guys all know, we get inspected every year by the building department. They come into the house, inspect each room, fire system, extinguishers, everything. And that house been that way for 5 years and they've been inspecting it and there's no issue. I have a CO signed by Corey for a 6-bedroom house, and he's the one came in and give me the final CO. So there is a file of a 6 bedrooms in the building department. So nothing to hide. And it's 4 bedrooms on the bottom and 2 bedrooms on the top. I know somebody said 3 on the top. It's only 2 on the top and 4, and they could come in and inspect anytime.
That's super.
But we have a CO for 6-bedroom house filed with the building department, signed by Corey.
Great. I mean, there is one point that I think was well taken, and that is that we don't have full floor plans for this proposed addition or the existing house that you will be building off of. Is that something that the board would like to see? So
Should be legal. Everything should be. I'm not going to vote for something that's not legal.
right, absolutely. Yeah, so I think having a full to scale floor plan for the whole building would be important for us to see the next meeting.
You have it for the addition, right?
We have it for the addition, but not
The
for the
addition, yeah.
existing, right?
The
Because we
addition
weren't-
you already have.
We were just removing one of the bedrooms.
The issue with the one for the addition is that it's indicated as though it's like it's probably like a marketing document. So it says on it not to scale. So it doesn't make it an official part of the application. It doesn't make it an official plan within the application because it refutes itself by saying it's not to scale.
Yeah, and if it was we'd also like to see it as a separate sheet so we could, you know, see the details. Right now, it's, you know, just up here in the corner.
Thank you.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, about the trees. I mean, the trees, I guess, were originally proposed to be the way they are there in consideration of the neighbor, and if
Right,
they don't like them that way, why not just
yeah,
do what she said and
I
plant
think,
the trees yeah.
yeah, I think we did hear,
I'm sorry,
Sorry,
to interrupt you. Did they get to see what we were given?
oh, no, maybe not. But
Some of the trees are crossed out and other ones are.
we also did hear this feedback last time. I think we just misunderstood because we requested that we
Yeah, I
remove
thought-
one or two of the trees.
Just wasn't fun.
We did.
Right.
Yeah, we pulled it back to, so it was behind the front setback.
Right.
That's what we had discussed.
And so
We
now it
certainly
sounds like the neighbors actually would prefer even fewer trees, which I thought, you know,
Well,
they would
want
like it
more
for
trees,
sound protection,
Right.
but I
They
guess not.
more trees in a different spot.
Um,
I get it.
But I mean,
just-
we can't put a tree in the,
Right, we can't put one in the park in the
In the
middle of the
driveway.
driveway, but
driveway, but you could- tree islands and parking lots.
it's in the middle of the driveway.
No, not.
Looks like three, where they're
You could add maybe
indicated as
three.
possible. And yeah, and the other thing about the tree line along the property line was that the last plan I saw, and I did miss a meeting, it had fewer trees, the density was less. Now it's complete wall of trees, and so that's not, what the neighbor finds.
So remove
Most
all
helpful
the
should
trees.
remove them.
Remove all the
Well,
trees.
you'll see in that
Well, just
suggestion.
do it closer to this here, which I think that's fine. Okay,
Where it's
the-
crossed out, it's
Yeah,
crossed out.
absolutely. And Rich, the reason we had added more trees is because there was concerns about buffering
Right,
the
but when
property.
the
So that's
barn
why we
being
did
torn
that.
down.
I mean, I
Right.
almost think
And
if
that's why we
the,
did that.
if the intent would be to buffer both headlight
Mm-hmm.
sight and, you know, appearance of cars and parking, then 1, 2, 3, and maybe like this
Sure. Yeah, that could
would mean that all this parking would be obscured by trees and all of this parking activity would be obscured by trees. And you're, you know, everything that is paved with the new permeable paver would not be immediately apparent.
Yeah, and so moving on to that permeable paver is, am I correct in thinking the whole parking area will be?
That aspect was removed. They were looking at old site plans that have been revised since then.
Right,
Because we reconfigured the building, we're now at less than 30%, or actually at 30% coverage without using that. So we weren't anticipating using that at all. That's been removed
So
from the
it's-
site plan.
so it's still slightly reducing the amount of impermeable surface.
Correct, we're going from 31 to 30.
But
Right.
it's right on the border of what's allowed by the code. I guess I'm wondering if you would consider adding some permeable surface for like maybe just the parking spaces, for the parking spaces in the back or the 5 along the side, just to alleviate some of the drainage concerns.
That's fine, or we could, wherever we move the barn, we could use in that area to fill it in.
Can I ask a question about that drainage? Basically, the driveway and the parking lots, which way does it drain on your design?
Well, it drains towards the back. I mean, the rear of the
Drains
building
towards the
drops
west.
off. Yeah, the
It goes
drop
west.
Yes. Right.
And the driveway, does that go to the east a bit? Is there, because I don't, is there?
Well, the
is there
driveway is
grade
existing there now, so we weren't anticipating any changes to the existing drive and approach. Really, the only changes were in the back where the cars are actually parking.
So maybe if we want some permeable space here, maybe we just do permeable areas on the far western end of those parking spots, because that's where the water's going. There's probably no need to do it on the south side.
Right, because it actually goes
Because the water's not
Pretty
going
limited.
there.
The water's
It's
not
heading
going
west.
that way. It is heading west.
It's heading
so-
west. Now, another question is, I assume the city engineer has looked at this site plan and reviewed the drainage? And we have his or her opinion of that?
I do believe we referred it to, the town engineer or the village engineer.
Yes.
Okay, and we have his or her opinion on that?
I'll see if I can find the memo, but yeah, I'm fairly sure we got that.
I think we got back no concerns, but I don't remember if it was in a memo or an email.
Okay,
Email the plans for 5 and 7 Prospect Street are satisfactory, this telling you any of the details.
Okay.
That's from Blue,
that's from who?
that's from Blue, DPW. They reviewed the civil
Did,
engineering.
did the city engineer review the drainage?
This is a message from Blue.
Can we ask the city engineer to review the drainage?
Yeah,
We have a neighbor next door that says they have ponding water coming off this lot. Let's make sure we have it right.
yeah, I'm open to that. I think we can ask Dennis to review these plans.
And the plans would be without those trees. Because that could
Right.
impact drainage.
Right, right.
So that would be something that, Lee, you would need to reproduce and indicate what would be there. I'm assuming planted turf would be the alternative there.
Mhm.
And seeded turf, whatever you're gonna do, and then they would have to analyze it based on that.
Okay.
And the idea that is that it's already a pre-existing condition, certainly can't allow the site plan to make it worse. But our engineers will be able to tell us.
And if anything, you're right. We, yeah. I bet you can improve.
Mhm.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
I know we're talking about the drainage. Is there an issue with tree roots that would disrupt, the adjoining property? What would I mean, these are gonna be trees that are gonna grow presumably, their roots are gonna spread.
So I think what Allison Nash was referring to with these proposed new trees. And so what
So
we've
we're
asked
taking those
them,
out.
yeah, to remove those from the plan. So I don't anticipate there being,
So does that
issues.
also mean that there's no, I don't know what, visual protection, whatever, from the cars parking essentially right at her lot line?
No, those trees are still
Those
there.
trees will be
yeah,
there,
those are still there.
You also move the
and their
fence, or leave
roots
it?
won't interfere with her driveway or disrupt as the trees
Um,
mature? It
was
just,
my
it just
under-
feels to me, I know nothing about this, except that I'm a homeowner, you know what happens with tree roots.
Can you tell us what is immediately on the other side of the property lot line from where the trees that are planted alongside the lot line? Is that turf or is that
I
paved?
don't have that information right now, because it's off the property, so I wasn't looking.
I
at
understand.
that.
I was just asking.
Mhm.
Can we ask the city engineer to give us an opinion on the impact of those trees on the adjoining property?
I mean, it's either gonna be that or a fence.
Yeah,
And I would,
We have a 40-foot fence that we
Right.
put in front of the trees and then are
Right.
putting the trees behind it.
right, so my point is gonna be, it's either the neighbor's appearance to have
Mhm.
just a fence
Right.
or the fence
fenced
with
in
trees.
Right.
I would, I would recommend for the village's benefit that we have the fence with trees for the aesthetic, of that.
yeah.
And I mean, I got trees disrupting my sewage line as we speak, and it's just what happens. They're living things. I don't know what they're gonna disrupt on the other side of the property line. I guess we could ask that.
I think the value that the trees add is worth
agree.
it. So I don't really think the engineer needs to study that. Were there any other issues that we want to address with this tonight?
I also just wanted to highlight the idea that it's obvious to all of the community that maintenance of the buildings are important and that trash in particular is something that people have indicated. I understand you have an experience of what it takes to keep the trash clean. But I think it's a really valid concern. And I'm reluctant to entirely validate everything that's been brought here in with regard to this proposal or other things, but I do want to validate the idea that maintaining the property according to code is not even something we're able to put in the resolution because it's supposed to just be the air we breathe as a property owner in the community. So we just have to ask you to please make that an area of focus. Please.
That would be taken care of.
Thank you.
And I think I would just like to finally add, just getting back to the issue of whether there are 6 bedrooms in that existing house. The applicant has represented that, stated very clearly, says there's city records to that effect. I'm also looking at a sealed site plan, and that sealed site plan clearly says there's 6 bedrooms in existence.
Okay. So I think the next steps would be to get the revised site plan. We will ask our engineer for comments on the drainage, and then next time we can get that resolution for you.
Can we note real quick, I looked back through correspondence with Dennis Larios about this. And there might have been some confusion. They did look at it and he passed it off to Blue. So with the revised plans, it'll be easy to go back to them.
Okay. Yeah. And please allow me to confirm, we are, what, in terms of the revision of the parking areas, are we requesting that any more of the parking be converted to a permeable surface? And if so, exactly what, so that we get this?
Yeah, I think we were requesting that the westernmost part of it, maybe, yeah, just the parking spaces, that area be.
Yeah, there's 4 parking spaces.
Right. I guess it's a
4 westerly parking.
It's an engineering and maintenance question. Is it easier or harder to maintain something permeable there?
I see it being a maintenance issue. The system that we had was a concrete grid system that has
Yeah.
openings in it for the permeable.
It wouldn't just be like item 4.
No.
You were
It's a
thinking about
concrete
using
pavement. All right.
And the rest of the driveway will be
And-
blacktop.
Yes.
So the blacktop will go into the concrete.
Yes.
So
it
the
bu-
seam
abuts
there
to
is
it.
going to be blacktop to concrete. That'll be the seam.
Yes. Right.
So it might be, if we're making a request, we could just ask for those 4 spots. If we're making a recommendation, we could ask for all of it to be of that way. And you would drop your, impervious coverage
29%.
down to probably, some couple of percentage points less. Hopefully
Somewhat
affect even
less.
more western drainage. And probably be a little more appealing than more black asphalt.
Right. I mean, I would say though that a lot of what's already that we're proposing to be paved is already paved. So
Mhm.
so no extra paving kind of
Mhm.
really adding to whatever issues.
Okay,
It
so,
may be.
so I guess it's a request to do the westernmost is what the board is saying.
That's what I'm
Okay.
comfortable with.
Could I just ask, I know there was discussion at a past meeting about the siding on this building all being a consistent.
Correct, and we are.
And I don't see that like noted on the plan. I know you said it,
I think
but
it's on
if you're
the,
going back to the plan, maybe you could add a note. to that
It's on the
effect.
plan.
it's on the elevation drawings.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
Yeah, they were removing all the siding and
Put in a
roofing,
new one.
so that this way it was all
Well,
congruent
uniform.
throughout, right?
Okay. yeah.
Thank you.
All right, I think that's everything for tonight, and yeah, we'll
Thanks.
All right.
forward those plans as soon as we.
Thank you,
back
Ben.
with it. Thank you. Thank you. Next up, we have PB 2406, 85 North Chestnut. Hey, how are you? There it is. Okay, over here. There we go. Okay. So at our last meeting, we kind of got reacquainted with the plan, didn't identify any new issues with extending approval. However, we did just get your response to the specific conditions from the last resolution of approval. I guess I was wondering if maybe you could go through
it quick?
these briefly, yeah.
All right, so there was 10 specific conditions in 2020 that were related to doing them before site plan signature. So those are the ones that I talked about here. The first one was address all the village engineers' comments. And we actually did that back in May 4th, 2021. And he didn't provide his final letter to sign off, but we did that already. So he needs to do his final sign off still. Similar to the traffic comments, we responded to both of those letters in there, but we can get a final sign off from PDE Provident. Fire department, same story. We went back and forth with Corey and addressed all of his issues. And I provided a copy of that in here. The next condition, number 4, is that if we change the parking, then we need to come back to the board, and we understand that.
I'm sorry, can we go back to the fire department again?
Yeah.
I guess I'm missing something. I don't see where the fire department said, and I know this is the minutia of this thing, but it's more a general comment. I don't see where the fire department said it's okay to have a birch tree there. The developer said it's okay to have it there, but I don't see the fire department saying it's okay.
Birch tree.
Birch tree is okay because it grows upright. Very poorly worded, let me tell you. No fire chief in the world is gonna take that at face value.
Which email was this in? Terry?
This is Andrew Willingham, principal engineer, to Elena Sawchuk,
yeah,
Rich Golden. I spoke with Corey this morning. The fire department comments will be addressed as follows. The birch tree is okay because it grows up. Does the chief agree with it? Does the fire chief agree with it?
We sent that response to Corey.
Yep.
And I spoke to Corey about it also. And I think there's different kinds of birch trees. I don't remember the exact conversation I had with him, but our landscape architect knows, I'm sure she picked one that was upright. She's the one that would have told me it was upright, not me, 'cause I'm not an expert.
That these attachments prove that you have their agreement, you're just showing the status, right?
Well, what basically they're showing is they were very close to his sign off. He never replied to my last email.
Okay, we need something from the fire.
Yeah, we'll get that.
Just like you do with, yes, like all the others, you need something from the village engineer, you need something from from Providence, you need something from the fire department. Okay,
All right, we'll get that.
okay.
And that's basically the answer to most of them, that you're gonna get it.
Right, but as far as the first 2, it's all done. We did everything we could. We say here, but they didn't send anything back. We'll get that.
Yeah.
We did everything we can do.
Now you need to nudge them.
Yeah.
You need to nudge our professionals to get their response for us.
Right.
We appreciate it.
Or else these just stay in as conditions of the reapproved.
Which is fine.
site plan, right?
I was just trying to explain. I think they're in there to be safe, to make sure that all issues are addressed.
That's fine.
Yeah, and we're not asking to take any of these out, by the way.
Okay.
Right, you're gonna get the rec fees.
Yeah.
What's going on there right now? Can you tell me? I mean,
The
it looks like
trail?
They've dug up, there's like a huge pit and they've got some silt fences and,
So the village, I don't know, I'm not involved in that, but the village, I know. The village got an easement from Roddy for that trail. So they're building, the village got a grant or one of those funding mechanisms. Yeah, thank you. And they're building that. So they're using their easement and their right to use that to build that connection, and they're upgrading that intersection and putting that trail through to the rail trail.
Okay. Now, what I'm looking at is the trail easement sketch, and I don't know that, well, this is dated May of 2021. So what we're looking at on that sketch is what's being built there now.
This is a copy of the easement. That's
Okay,
not, yeah,
right. Okay, you're right. It's the easement.
right,
So right now, there's construction going on in that easement,
right.
yes,
and that crosses the owner, this crosses the owner's property.
correct.
Okay. Okay, well, let's get to the minutia.
Oh, we weren't on the minutia?
Oh, no.
Yeah. We have put too much detail in
And I'm
here.
only doing this, I think, in deference to the owner. Are you the owner?
Yes.
Okay, in deference to you. The legal description of that easement starts with a PK nail in the pavement of the street. That street has been paved at least once.
They're not gonna cut it.
How do they know where the easement is? That PK nail is not there. I can almost guarantee you. So if I were you, make sure somebody surveys that, so that work is being done on the easement that you think it's being done on. The legal description starts with a PK nail. And they're only about that big. And they sit in the pavement of the road. When that road got paved, that nail's gone. And I guarantee you, nobody put it back in.
Sure they didn't.
Okay, well, be careful.
Thank you.
Yeah. The next one's about the DOT, and just a short update. They have to dedicate 5 feet to the DOT to make sure the full sidewalk's on, and it's a really lengthy process. Like, it takes, we'll submit information and it'll take 6 months to hear back. So we're still working on that. We just talked about the shared trail. The adjacent owner of the south, we know we have to get them to sign the owner's authorization and the access easement, but Roddy's talked to him. He said that he will
He's in
sign.
agreement with it.
Yeah, he's in agreement. So we know we have to provide that.
So the access would come from that tan and red building.
Yeah.
Into the property.
So they can get to that light.
Yeah.
That's one which hasn't changed.
Yeah, it's not a different.
No, it's exactly the same. All right. Filing of the access easement with the county clerk, we will do that. It's already been signed, but we'll file it with the county. We'll do that prior to final signature. We already talked about the access easement, and then the recreation fees will obviously be paid. So I'm just giving you a summary. We're not proposing to change any of this.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, understood. Am I muting this one? Right there.
I just ask, and I wasn't here for when this was reintroduced, but is there any reason that this period of time has passed since the first approval? That we could mitigate, or is there an intent to move forward after this approval with the building?
Yes, the intent to move as soon as we get approval, and that before you had COVID, you had a shortage of material. The contractor kept pushing us off. We switched contractor. It was like, and the bank COVID just took over everything and just put everything on hold. And now things are starting to clear up. There's more material in the store. You could move along with it.
Concern about, we've got 3 apartment buildings going up in a very short space. I'm wondering if there's any way of the construction of all these things being coordinated so that you don't have like an endless disruption of 32. Like if
Well-
they're gonna be coordinated in some way that,
I mean, that's tough because we have no idea when those other projects will actually start building, break ground. That's very unclear right now.
and I don't remember this, that you made no, I don't remember whether there was an indication of any solar
Yes.
on this, your building. Okay, they're not on the rendering. Now I remember, they're not on the rendering, but you say they're gonna be solar panels on the roof.
Yes.
Right, for
Okay.
the common areas
The parking, the
and the
common
lighting.
areas.
Okay, all
Yes.
right, thank
It's
you.
a good bare, wide open opportunity. I
Yeah.
imagine to get some.
They'll get a good sun.
Yeah,
Yeah, and to your point, it's true, and that this might all happen on the same time within a mile of each other, but I would guarantee there's no way to coordinate it. All we can say is each individual project has to abide by the rules and it's gonna be a lot of construction happening, and probably many more trucks than we've ever seen, and there's gonna be that.
oh, it's gonna be a nightmare.
That there's construction everywhere holding everything up. 299, I don't know what they're doing in. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well. If there are no, substantial issues with the specific conditions and the state of those, I guess I'm ready to move forward to, authorizing the preparation of a resolution of approval. So.
Second?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great, and if you do hear back and get those final confirmations for any of these, we can let us know and we can remove them from the specific conditions, and for the final resolution. Yeah.
And then seeker, if you were gonna reaffirm it last
I
meeting.
think that the board determined that the existing seeker review still covered the project, but nothing.
Did that last meeting.
substantial has
Okay.
changed, so we'll include that in the resolution, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
You too.
Good luck, Roddy.
Could we have PB 2407, 147, 149, and 151 North Chestnut Street?
Good evening.
Hello.
You all.
And if you wouldn't mind just reintroducing
Absolutely.
yourselves.
Of course. Thank you again. For the record, Taylor Palmer with the law firm of Cuddy and Fader on behalf of the applicant. Glad I am joined by Mike Bodendorf of Hudson Land Design. He's our project engineer. I'm also joined by our project architect, David Burke. With us on the internet is Frank Licciotto of Creighton Manning Engineering. He's our traffic engineer, and the applicant and property owner, those are the words. Buddy Wortman is on Zoom as well. Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'll give a quick sort of.
Yeah, please give us a overview.
Great. So tonight we are before you in connection with an application for a subdivision or a lot merging two lots. We'll also require site plan and special permit approvals for the redevelopment of the property here in North Chestnut. We did submit a fully detailed application to you all, a lot more of this information included therein, dated March 25th. And of course, before I turn it over to David, Mike, and Frank, let me steal some of their talking points really quickly. We first met with village staff back in February. There we had an opportunity just to discuss the project, get some initial feedback from the building inspector and members of town staff, village staff. By way of update as to where we are, the property is located on North Chestnut, and it's just north of the Agway property. So it's north of Agway and just south of the Bose's property. So to give you context, we're in the NBR district, so we're right smack in the middle of those two properties to kind of give you a general location. As mentioned, we are in the NBR district. We have been working hard over the last year, so this application is a fully enveloped project. We didn't want to come in half-baked, so to speak. So we're here with a lot of information, and we know we're early in the process. So tonight, we really just wanted to kind of give you an initial approach to this. You know, in the last year, of course, we've been monitoring the Zero Place application, the building and construction thereof, as well as the Agway project. So we're trying to ensure that we're a cohesive component of this redevelopment of the corridor. And we think we've done a lot to improve off of what you all worked so hard to help sort of come together in those properties. Visually, we are a 3-story mixed-use building, includes 7,400 square feet of ground level retail along North Chestnut and 124 multifamily residential units. Mike will get into the layout of the parking lot and how that functions on the site and our interconnectivity. We are, of course, to the rear, abutting the Empire State Trail as well. I guess with that, so as to not steal all of their talking points, I'll let David Burke, our project architect, walk through. Maybe David, I'll switch places with you so you can kind of walk folks through.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna
take online out.
Yeah, just go to the rendering sheet.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to stay at high level here. Please stop me and ask questions as you like. Thank you for taking the time. It's good to be here. So our intent here is really to create a healthy development that focuses on green infrastructure, on green building practices, and complete streets concepts. One of the major characteristics in this development is that we're actually pushing the building back slightly and creating public open space on the street. So the idea is to kind of maximize retail activity to the front, create a park-like setting on the street, and give a place for people, a destination for people to go. We want to make this a destination for New Paltz. Looking at the overall site plan, the idea here really is 2 buildings, 2 L buildings that are kind of kinked in the middle. And again, pushing, kind of opening up this space along 32, again, to give a real pedestrian destination. We're focusing on bike lane here as well. So try to maximize biking, pedestrian activity, and even public transportation. In the back, the building opens up again, creating a stormwater management area. So we're trying to minimize the amount of runoff, site water runoff, and maximize infiltration into the surrounding landscape.
Can I just pause it for a second? Yeah. The NDR setback from the street to the front of the building, can you give a sense of how many feet that is and how it complies with the
so on this corner,
the maximum setback, I think what it is?
So with this quarter, we're at 25 feet, and this quarter, we're at 45.
So we did submit initially to the building inspector to make sure that we complied. He did submit a memo for the record, which is now in the village's files, that does speak to the setback. So we'll have that for the side yard, but not for the front yard. But we did speak to this specific issue, but we can get more clarification on how it complies. But that was one of our initial questions too, as well as accessibility on the first floor for the units that don't face 32, and then the setbacks to the side yards, because there's the language in that code section is a bit peculiar because it
That's
says.
another question. Yeah, that's another issue. But the front setback, I understood that it was there was a maximum of X, whatever that X is. And this feels like it's a good way away from it for attractive and interesting reasons, but I'm just pointing it out. Thanks.
Thank you.
Keep going.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
What kind of green infrastructure are you talking?
Stormwater management. So we have a bioswale, a green bioswale area in the back here. The roof water will be directed into this, and it will be slowed to promote infiltration before it's then reaches its maximum. Mike can kind of stepping on Mike's toes here, but Mike can fill you in with the details before the water is then discharged offsite.
And then we'll also be talking about the roof deck as well as we go through the presentation.
Green roof areas on the roof as well to slow water runoff.
Just quickly go to the first floor plan. We have a community gathering space in the center of the building. The idea is really to keep people here. We've got co-working, so they can work, from home. We've got an event space as well. And then we have an atrium in the center as well that's open out to this courtyard for residential use.
So is that center area open to the public as well, or is that just
This would be residential
community
use,
for the
community
residents?
only.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So public is just going to be along the street and entering commercial
That's right.
units through those doors. Okay, understood.
If you were on the rail trail, could you theoretically cut through?
So we have not made any provision to connect the site to the rail trail. That's a discussion we were assuming we would have.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
But if that, it ultimately is that goes through the process, if that is something that the board, the public looks at as a connectivity, we're cognizant of that, and the site plan will account for or accommodate, whether it's pedestrian access all the way out to Chestnut, of course, it will make way for that to happen on the site, if that's something that would be,
Wet.
Stream
Wetlands. Yeah, got, no, but
Yeah, just like Zero Place, when you go to the back, go to the coffee shop, come around the corner, you can see you can call it a culvert or you can call it a stream in that location. They have a bridge that goes right to the rail trail in that location. It's the same exact, similar conditions to our site in this location. And we're gonna, again, of course, include retail and components. So there's a lot of connectivity, and we know that's a lot of what we're looking to do in this quarter. So we're mindful of that. We're just sort of, certainly appreciate the comment and look to just, direction from the board and the public on that too.
Okay.
And lastly, again, I'll let Mike dive into the site, but I should probably just mention the materials. So an image of a kind of a cutaway at the main entrance. So we have a mix of timber clad curtain wall at the apartments, and then at the entrance we'd have the corrugated metal. And then, of course, glazing at the lower level to maximize views into the retail.
That before I get to Mike, we would have Frank Licciotto from Creighton just touch to you. We did a traffic analysis in the quarter, so we want to work on laying that, just give you an update there, and then we'll turn to Mike on the fun stormwater and engineering stuff.
Great.
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for accommodating me on Zoom. I'm battling a little sore throat and just wanted to play it safe. So thank you. And it's good to see everyone this evening. I know I've been in front of this board quite a bit over the last couple of years, so it's nice to see you again. As Taylor mentioned, we've done a traffic impact study. We've submitted it as part of the application. We've followed the general guidelines that the village's consultant has laid out over the last few applications that we've been involved with. So, from a traffic point of view, I don't think there's going to be anything in that document that is relatively new or, coming out of left field. It's got a study of 5 or 6 key intersections in the nearby vicinity, in keeping with other projects that we've worked on North Chestnut Street. We looked at AM and PM peak hours. We factored in the future traffic associated with 9 other development projects that are in various states of the land use process, some of which were, recently constructed, but constructed after counts were performed, and some projects which are only in the very nascent stages of the permitting process. So I think it was Mr. Swoto's point that we don't have any way of knowing exactly when all these projects are coming online, but any viable traffic study needs to look at everything, certainly in this corridor, that is known or probable to happen. So our study does that. In terms of the site plan, again, I don't want to steal too much thunder from Mike, but this layout is something that I think you will find similar to the project immediately to the south it's a mid-block project site, so there's no side street access. We're relying on North Chestnut Street for ingress and egress. And we're proposing a driveway at the south end of the site, as well as a driveway at the north end of the site, to allow for adequate circulation back to the parking spaces to the rear of the facility. Obviously, this road is a DOT highway. We need to apply for a highway work permit. We've made an initial submission to DOT. So these plans that you see in front of you this evening have gone to DOT. They've started their review. And so we'll be working through the highway work permit process with them as we've done on other projects similar to this. One of the, I think, exciting opportunities that this project allows us to do from a traffic standpoint is propose a mix of complete streets treatments along the frontage. David highlighted it, but we have a protected bike lane along the frontage. It's a one-way southbound bike lane just along our frontage. We don't control, obviously, the points north and south, but the idea will be to allocate space for a protected bike lane. And by protected, I mean that there would be, the DOT is on board with this, parallel parking spaces along southbound North Chestnut that would essentially shield the bike lane from the moving traffic. That's a common feature that you see in more urban areas. Provides the more vulnerable road users a little bit more protection. And then up on sidewalk level, you'd have your traditional sidewalk. So you'd have separation between the sidewalk and the bike lane, and then the bike lane and the moving traffic. And then in addition to the dedicated sidewalk, you have this large plaza area. So the front of this project is very pedestrianized and pedestrian friendly from the standpoint of getting pedestrians and bicyclists to this facility. I imagine there'll be opportunities for bike racks and things like that to get you from the bike lane onto the property. And again, these are things that DOT will need to comment on and approve, and we're in the beginning process with them. In terms of parking, we are code compliant on parking. The village's code allows us to take a reduction because we're coupling residential units with retail space. So the code compliant number is 140 spaces. We are providing 146 on the site, in addition to 11 land bank spaces. And then if the DOT is okay with it, we have 11 additional that front the site on the street. So all in all, 168 parking spaces we're hoping would be made available. And again, if the DOT were to deny those spaces on the street, we'd still have code compliant parking on the site itself. So that's a fairly high level kind of status update as to where we are on traffic. I imagine the board will want to have its professionals review it. We look forward to collaborating with them as we've done in the past, and I'm here if you have any questions.
Just, I mean, briefly, in your traffic study, were there any intersections that were majorly impacted by this plan?
So great question. The intersection that, and this was the case in a few other prior applications, the intersection of 32 and Main Street, specifically northbound on Route 32, sees a degradation in level of service. And I just want to point out that that's the result of a very conservative analysis, because we're looking at 9 other projects simultaneous to this one, all the traffic associated with those projects, as well as a background growth rate that we layer onto that, all happening within a couple of year span. We went so far as to suggest timing mitigation at that traffic signal to mitigate those impacts. And again, those impacts are largely resulting from all of these projects kind of coming online at once. So we went a little bit further and said, if you were to implement some timing mitigation, you'd be able to improve the level of service at that intersection. And again, we posed that the DOT would need to buy in to that. We've done that on prior projects as well. And a lot of times with timing, it becomes a wait and see because the report is very conservative in that it's looking at multiple projects all at once. And you might not ever realize that negative effect because some projects may not happen or they'll take such a long time that you'll never notice that incremental delay. So we did do that, Mr. Chairman, and it's in there. And you know, if the state DOT wanted to revise that timing, they certainly could.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, is one of the intersections you examined, I didn't see any data about North Chestnut and Bonnecue Drive. Was that, is there a reason that you left that intersection out or?
So it wasn't an intersection that has been looked at historically for projects along this corridor. We followed the same scope of study that was required for the project immediately to our south. And Bonnecue was not, I mean, it was included because it was directly across the street. We can certainly add that in if the board would like. But no, it was not part of this study in particular because it wasn't an intersection that was identified as an intersection that every project would study. It just so happened that the project to our south was directly across the street, so we looked at it. But we'd be happy to put that in if the board would like. I think I lost audio. I'm not able to hear anyone right now. Not sure if you can hear me.
Hello? Hello?
Yep, I got you now.
We have that presentation for you next. So.
Yeah, let's get into that.
Okay,
quickly.
so everybody's talking about proposed things here. I'm just gonna back up a little bit and just talk about the existing conditions here. I think it's a good time to do that. The site is mostly open. There is some wooded area in the back. There's an existing residential structure on the property with some outbuildings. It does consist of 2 lots today. We will be merging those lots into one. There is a small pocket wetland on the south end, a stream on the north end. We're down by a stream on the west side. All of the existing structures on the property will be demolished for the project. There's an existing culvert that comes across Route 32 that discharges into the project. That drainage goes south into the Agway project. And I noticed that they cut that drainage off as part of their project, but that's okay because we're going to take care of that and bring it to the back drainage channel that goes through the west side. Moving on to the site plan, Frank mentioned that we are providing 168 total spaces with the 11 parallel spaces along 32, 11 land bank spaces, 9 here, and there's 2 spaces in the rear. And he did mention that with the shared parking calculation, that number goes down to, I think, 144, Frank, am I correct?
140.
And where are the land bank parking spaces? Oh, up
So
on
there's
the north.
9 on the northeast corner.
I see. Yeah.
And then there's 2 that are, where are we here? There's 2 that are just nestled back there. Just gonna flip to the grading utility page. So all of the stormwater features on the site are in red. I don't want that to mean that it's a bad thing. Red is just the uniform code for when you do markouts for certain utilities. So for instance, we'll do sewer in green, we'll do water in blue, stormwater in red, electric in yellow, just to kind of separate the different utilities. So we have three stormwater management areas. David touched on the central stormwater management area that is a big bioswale that's in between the rear wings of the building. That will take on most of the building's roof runoff. We have 5 bioswale pods in the plaza in the front that will also take on some of the front of the roof runoff. And then we have a underground detention sand filter system that takes on the runoff from all of the pavement. All of those systems are tied into our internal stormwater management system that discharges to the stream in the back. We also have that drainage that comes across the street onto our property from, Route 32 and thereon. We're going to intercept that with additional drainage along the curb line. That bypasses our internal stormwater system, and we bring it around it. We also intercept a pipe that's coming onto the site from the Agway property, and we bring that back to the drainage channel in the rear.
Oh, gravity,
Yeah. Sewer, we have 2 exit points out of the rear wings of the building and an on-site gravity system to a proposed pump station. The pump station will pump sewage to the front and then along 32 down to a gravity manhole that's located, I think it's the same manhole that the Agway project is going into. I've had discussions with Blue about that. There's a lot more work to be done on that. And we know that there's issues with the pump station. We're going to discuss those with them as well. Water.
Have to be made even larger than it's already proposed to be expanded by the other 2 apartment buildings that also, are you gonna then also contribute to that? I mean, they each have to pay $130,000.
Paying for the existing pump station.
For the
You're talking about a new pump station,
new
right?
Well, we have our own pump station, but the municipal pump station that needs upgrades for this project, I don't know if they figured in this project in those upgrades.
Yeah.
So
No,
that'll have to be reevaluated.
What's coming in, we're totally out of left field.
And we're
At all.
fine with whatever the village, wants the fair share.
not knowing anything about that, but Terry always did lots of times.
Well-
But may I ask a question specifically, which is that if they were to continue with the capital investment and upgrade that was supposed to be done, funded by the 2 existing properties, is the capacity of that type of that type of pump station modular, in that like they could do that one and then they would have to do like another thing to do this? Or would we have to address the need for this in the current construction question?
I think the easy question is, we have to address this. Yeah, one way or another.
Right,
You know,
but could
you
you,
gotta-
could we move forward with the other one, knowing this could be addressed in a modular way, an incremental way? Or would it?
It's probably best for the city engineer to answer that question. Or, I mean, the applicant can opine on that, but, obviously those, the physical configuration of that pump station, I don't recall them making the wet well any larger. They were gonna make the pumps newer. They're gonna change all the electrical systems and change all that. Is there enough pumping capacity, storage capacity and all that? That's for the engineers to decide that. But, well, one question I have, you have a force main from your pump and that goes into a force main in 32?
No, we'll have to bring it all the way down to that gravity
So
manhole.
you're gonna have another force
Yeah.
main going down there, okay. And you're gonna own that one that's in 32 as well, sorry.
So moving on to the water, there is an existing 8-inch ductile iron pipe in the frontage of the site. And we understand that the village has bids out for a new water main along that frontage. We're showing a connection to the existing water main now. By the time we get to that point, we may be tying into the new water main if it's built at that point. So we'll have to make adjustments for that. We're proposing an internal private water main. We'll provide a hydrant on site in the rear of the property. There's a hydrant in the frontage of the property existing now. We'll have a meter pit because it is a private water line. We'll have to monitor any, water coming onto our site, and any leakage on our site we're paying for and not the village. you know, that, we are in the floodplain. We have to fill this site, to get the building above that floodplain. There has been a detailed study on the, in this area, so we are in the zone AE, which means there's a floodway associated with the Wallkill River. So as long as you do not encroach into that floodway and you're in zone AE, the math is already done that you're not going to impact the flood elevation. So we will be filling the site. The buildings will be set at an elevation at least 2 feet higher than the flood elevation of 189. So we set those buildings at 191.5. Yeah, important, Phil.
What's the current elevation?
The current elevation of the site.
Generally, you know, you gotta go to 191. Where's
Yeah,
the-
I mean, at the front, it kind of slopes very slightly towards the back. So we're at 190 at the frontage of the street, but it drops back to as low as 185 towards the rear of the property.
Maybe 6 feet.
Yeah.
The, I think what's going through my head is, you know, now the compounding effect of all the projects that we've obviously approved. And one of them comes to mind is that there's an 8-inch water main there. The building will be sprinkled. I know that as part of the code. But do you have to use fire pumps in this building?
Yes.
You do?
Yep.
So we'll have to make sure there's enough pressure in that line to run those fire pumps.
Right, right.
I wonder if the other buildings have fire pumps, and I don't know that. Okay.
We have had conversations with Blue about that as well.
Okay.
And that'll be ongoing.
And a lot of these comments too, we know that the village's consulting staff will be reviewing this. We don't have any comments yet from any consultants whatsoever. So
No, I
today
understand.
is a purely hi over here, you know, where we want to get these comments.
Yes.
So we anticipate there will be a thorough deep dive on all that. Yep.
Yeah. Were there any other high level things you want to cover for tonight?
I think I covered most of the engineering, you know, grading wise, the site is going to be generally level. We just have to swim up and down to make drainage work.
Sure, yeah, okay. Well, in that case, there are a few next steps that we can take as a board. I guess the first thing, I don't see it noted here, but can we? Oh, okay. I see. I was looking for the seeker stuff. I guess, are there any, or I was just wondering if we could like, you know, declare our intent, or declare it as a
Yeah, so I put
certain type
that,
of action.
it's the last thing on there, if
Yeah.
you are comfortable with this general, and I think we should make sure we discuss whether this general design makes sense before we start.
Right, yeah.
seeker review.
I mean, personally, I think you've done a very impressive job. This is clearly a very well-developed plan. I like the layout, but I am a little concerned about the amount of lot coverage and the amount of parking that we're adding here, and just the scale of the project. I think I'm gonna have to, like, you know, dig into the traffic report and read our other consultants' reports as well. But does anyone else have major concerns?
The big loss of open space. What are you gonna pave the parking lot with?
We're proposing asphalt this time.
We are working to meet, I know this goes without saying, but I know that there were prior applicants this evening, and generally speaking, the comprehensive plan is encouraging additional multifamily components, so it is providing a need in that capacity. And then we, you know, and I don't mean to say it any other way than we are trying to implement what you know, this is but for a clarification we're still trying to get on the side yard setbacks. This is a otherwise zoning compliant plan. So it's completely consistent with and permitted by, but for the clarification we still need on the side yard issue. And I believe as was brought up, you know, just we can hopefully elaborate that with the building inspector about how it does comply with the front yard setback as well.
But we are certainly willing to reduce some parking spaces.
Yes. And that could also free up green space. That's a good point.
And we're also looking at turf pavers because we are sensitive to, you know, the petroleum issues with paving.
As far as the side yards, I think it was clear in the building inspector's memo that it's a maximum of 15 feet. So we've had this over and over with the projects along
Right.
here, where, you know, they needed to go to the ZBA for a variance from that maximum. And, you know, I think what's happened, what they've discussed in the past is the need for the two different access points because of fire requirements. And now this site is a little different in that it does border another site where I don't know if you've considered whether you could do any access between the sites so that you didn't need a variance on both sides, where you didn't need two curb cuts. That does make it a little different than the others that didn't have any other way of getting in besides doing two curb cuts.
And I guess just for point of information, sorry. Just a point of information for me, and I know we'll probably have to speak with the building inspector, but it looks, we did review the applications by the other applicants to the zoning board in relation to the side yard setback. Ours was just that it literally says side yard, and this is just directly from code section 212.13 G9C. All uses 0 to 15 feet maximum, comma, at the discretion of the planning board. So that part of it for us was, we just want to make sure that if it's not first the planning board, then the zoning board, but we're prepared to submit to the zoning board notwithstanding. But it just was the language, the way that it was written, at least my reading of it, was that it was to give the board discretion to say, hey, in these instances, it makes sense to do this instead of sending each potential applicant, because as soon as you have a road or driveway and you're almost already exceeding those setbacks, period. But I think maybe offline we can confirm, because we're prepared to do it one way or the other, and that may just ultimately relate to how this is classified from a seeker perspective as either a coordinated or uncoordinated review. Of course, that's a type 2 action at the zoning board for setback.
It's been considered a type 2.
Right. So it kind of defeats that conversation.
And it would seem a building of that scale would need the 2 points on either side. I almost see, I mean, it's.
We can reach out to the fire department too, if that might be.
Flow required to.
Just throwing that out there. It's
Well,
your-
I hear
it's your
you.
decision.
Well, you were talking about utilizing the entrance from the property to the south,
That's what I
right?
meant, yeah, like.
So
if
they
could
would have
combine-
two entrances. It would just, you know,
Be an
only
easement
one
or
curb
shared.
cut. Yeah, there.
And it would, yeah.
Yeah.
We can make the contact. There's no harm. Yeah, we certainly can make the outreach, and we can, I think, as was pointed out tonight, we should probably reach out to the fire department, but make sure they're good or their suggestions are circulation.
Yeah, and the DOT will also weigh in on those 2 entrances as well, whether they like them or not.
Okay, well. In that case, I guess our first item here, could I get a motion to set escrow at $10,000?
So move.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then there were a couple special use permits that are going to be required, and so just wondering if we could get some narratives for 212-40, the first floor residential units, the retail uses, the roof deck, and
I think I was wrong with that connection to the rail trail. There isn't
yeah,
one on this
yeah,
project.
yeah,
So-
not on this one.
And if there is at some future date, we will supplement
Right.
with.
Okay.
So what we usually ask applicants is just to go through those criteria and write out how you believe that it complies, just to help.
And will we be using that same approach that we did with some of the other buildings where we have some pre-approved uses?
That's the next
Oh,
point
sorry.
is, no, good segue. So in some of the other projects, what we did for the retail, because they hadn't identified exactly what it would be yet, in the code, there's certain types of retail and commercial uses that are allowed by special use permit. And so we've put in the approval that a list of those uses is pre-approved, and you wouldn't need to come back to the planning board if it's among that list. So if that's an approach you would want to consider, you would need to also, give us the narrative as to those potential uses.
Okay. So I'm not quite clear where we landed on the ZBA for side yard variances. Should we refer them at this point? Think so? Okay. In that case, I'd like to get a motion to refer the applicant to the ZBA for their side yard variance. Second. All in favor?
Before I vote, my
Oh, yeah.
suggestion is to refer it with the recommendation and background of the fact that this has come up in multiple applications, and it's our recommendation that it be approved. that it be approved.
Yeah, noted.
Thank you. And then we can vote.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So next, do we need to get HPC referral from in the NBR? Okay, in that case, I'd like to get a motion to refer the project to the Historic Preservation Commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And yeah, finally, I guess, do we feel like we're ready to refer these plans and the studies to some of our consultants, including traffic and environmental? So
The only thing I think I would be willing to do that, but I want to go back to North Chestnut and Bonacue Drive. Can we include that in your study of the traffic before you send it to our consultants?
And I haven't looked at the
Or
traffic
can
in
you do it
detail, but
simultaneously? I really don't.
Imagine there'd be more than one ping pong with the traffic consultant, but we could maybe we send the current and then update it accordingly.
Yeah, and that would be fine.
I think that sounds reasonable. It won't take us too long to add it, but I agree with Taylor that we could at least get it to them and then supplement, later on.
I appreciate it.
yeah, I mean, I would imagine we're gonna be looking at multiple iterations of referral here. I haven't had a chance to look at things in the level of detailing of that, so we could refer to our engineers, or we could take a hack at it and then refer it. But I'm open to, we think is the best. I mean, it's always helpful to have their engagement early. And it's also, we've seen the turnaround times have been long.
Right.
So I guess I'm
Yeah.
arguing both sides, like maybe get them going.
Yeah, I mean, I think the risk is if you end up kind of getting into it and wanting to change things, it might.
Then the guys are
be
setting
an
it back.
extra review, but it might also start the ball rolling.
Yeah,
So
I
it's-
mean,
yeah.
Only way I can weigh in is to tell you that a check is either being delivered tomorrow or Thursday. So that's all I can help.
well, you're gonna.
If that helps me.
You're gonna have to keep, it's gonna go quick.
Autumn pointed out also just to start the secret process if we're ready to do that and declare lead agency, and then they'll review as part of that as well. So.
Okay, yeah, I think then I'm comfortable asking for a motion to refer the traffic study to our traffic consultant.
What about all the other parts? I mean, in my opinion, this is just very, very complete application. I think we let the engineers have,
Just get all of them in one motion. Yeah, why not?
Truthfully, I mean, it's all there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would include traffic, environmental, and engineer.
The engineer one's, I think, important to get started.
Yeah.
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 Okay, could I get a motion to refer this proposal to our three consultants, traffic, environmental, and engineer?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I guess the last step would be the declaring lead agency
Yeah, well,
or
we should declare
motion
this
to
a type
intent.
1 and declare our intent to be a lead
Right.
agency.
Okay.
It's type one, not unlisted.
I believe it's a type 1 because it's adjacent to the rail trail, so I think you get the 25%. Yeah.
It's also on the fill. That's the type 1.
Okay, so yeah, I think I agree that this is merits a type 1 action. So could I get a motion to declare this project as a seeker type 1 action?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And could I have a motion to declare our intent to be the seeker lead agency?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I think that's all for tonight. Thank you for waiting. I know it was a long one, but yeah.
We're gonna do.
Thank you
all. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Trader Joe's.
We just got rid of the request. You'll see, you're starting to see a new company that's coming lead it. Women Brothers. A lot of artists. So
The applicant for
You mean food line, or what's it called?
the.
Okay.
German.
All right. Are we doing the colonial?
Yeah, we have one more.
They have representatives here? They have representatives.
If you really have to go to work, you have to leave right now. It's a new application.
During our transition, I do want to point out that when we have 10-minute presentations during public comment, we end up here at 10 o'clock at night on a final agenda item. And it's disrespectful to our intent and time, and we can't allow it. And I've been on this board at a time when we established a 3-minute maximum on presentations.
Yeah.
And where we asked people, if you weren't bringing anything new to the comment, then please submit it in writing and move on. And I think we're owed that
Yeah.
consideration.
I mean, I think Mr. Dungan's.
So we have another application. Let's do it.
Well, let's ask if is the applicant for 21 Colonial Drive with us? Hi, Rachel.
Thank you.
You shout aye on the way out. Could I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Zach. I ran out of steam.
No, I